Good morning, class. Welcome to lesson 17, cooking fish and shellfish. So this is going to be our new lesson, lesson 17. And as I mentioned in the title over here, we're going to be learning how to cook fish and shellfish. So after this chapter, you should be able to 1. Cook fish and shellfish by baking, broiling, sautéing and pan frying, deep frying, and this goes for shellfish and fish, right? Cooking fish and shellfish by poaching in Court-bouillon. And over here I put the meaning of what that Court-bouillon, for those who don't know what is it. So over here the meaning, the note says that it's a quick broth used for poaching other food, mostly commonly fish or seafood. Of course, seafood, include shellfish and everything, right? It is also sometimes used for poaching vegetables, eggs, sweetbreads, cockscombs, and delicate meat. It includes seasonings and salt, but lack of animal gelatin. So remember, I was telling you that when we cover sauces and stock, I told you that whenever the stock is good, when you do a very perfect stock, it's like gelatin. So, but in this case, it's lack of that. Doesn't have any animal bones or any type of animal protein in the stock. So, cooking fish and shellfish by poaching in fumet and wines. Cooking fish and shellfish by mixing cooking techniques. This is very important. Preparing a dish made of raw seafood. So they have some food that are served raw, right? And we're going to be learning that. An example of that is the sushi. So we're going to be learning about that today. All right. So our first topic is baking. And also over here I have in the picture I have two types of, can see it over here, type of baking. For example, this is a baked fish, and this is a what is known as a fish casserole. Both of them are baked, sorry, but there are big difference in them. So baking. So when you do baking, you can do the whole fish or fish portions, and maybe cooked by baking in an oven. Although large whole fish may be baked, it is usually not practiced in volume food service, and I'm going to explain that why. The method is more often used by steaks and fillet with smaller fish. So the reason why they don't really bake big fish in volume food service, or meaning large restaurant, is because the time, it may take a time, and we're going to be covering more ahead the timing, or how much time and the temperature should be take whenever you're going to be making a fish. The thickness, everything have to do with the thickness. So that is why they don't really bake big fish. For example, a big grouper, which is maybe like 5 pounds or more, they don't really do it big. So we're going to be learning that more ahead. Baking is also popular method for preparing shellfish, such as stuffed clams and or oysters. Baking is often combined with other cooking methods. For example, partially broiled fish can be finished by baking. So if you're going to be doing a broiled fish, you can finish that by baking. Remember that broiling means that you're going to be caramelizing the top of the meat or the fish, and you want only to get caramelizer and the fish stay right in the center, right? You want everything to be cooked. That's why you finish that in the oven. Baked fish casserole are usually made with cooked fish, and this is an example over here of a casserole. Fish casserole, you can see it over here. You see the laser pointer. It's this part over here. This is the fish casserole. Whole fish or portions of fish baked in the oven may also be referred as roast. So this is what baking is about. I'll try to go fast with these topics. And of course, you're going to find more details in your handouts. You can follow this PowerPoint by reading your handouts. You can going to find over there the information, and of course, in the handouts, you're going to have some extra information as well. All right. So, guidelines for baking fish. So, remember in our past lesson, I was telling you that fish don't have any connectivity tissues, right? So, the baking when it comes to baked fish is far more different than whenever you're baking ham or chicken or turkey or, or duck or any type of other bakings that you do regular meat baking. Remember that fish are lack of connectivity tissue, so they tend to get dry very fast. Dry and they get overcooked. So if you work in a restaurant, you don't want to be serving a fish that it is overcooked, that it is very flaky, and doesn't have any good presentation. So over here we have 6 guidelines for baking, so doing a perfectly baked fish. So the first point says that fat fish are better for baking because they are less likely to get dry. And remember, I was telling you that some examples of fat fish are, for example, salmon, mackerel, tuna, and so on. Remember that those type of fish are the ones that have their omega-3 or their fat in the skin, and they're also known as bluefish. They're classified. Remember that fish are classified as in whitefish and bluefish. So over here we're talking about bluefish. So, but the question is, do you think that lean fish can be big? So that is how we jump to point number 2. Over here it says that lean fish may be baked successfully if great care is taken not to overcook them. Basting with butter or oil helps preventing drying. And remember that I was telling you that basting means, for example, when you have over here it says butter or oil, and you just brush, like whenever you do barbecue, and then you just brush the barbecue sauce in top of your meat in the grill. That is what is known as basting. So it's the same thing when it comes to do lean fish. You baste them with butter or oil. And of example, for of course the butter you can season. For example, you can put some garlic, some lime juice, some peppercorns, and other any flavor you want to put to your butter. The same thing with oil. You can put olive oil, plain olive oil, or you can put coconut oil to enhance the flavor. Remember, I remember over here I am giving you the theory, and you are just going to be adding your flavor. So point number 3 says in most cases baking temperature are from 350 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is equivalent to 175 to 200 degrees Celsius. So these are the temperatures that you want to have or to maintain whenever you're going to be doing big fish. Large fish, are best baked at lower at the end of the range so they can bake more evenly. So if you're going to be doing a big fish, for example, an example of a big fish can be a grouper, grouper. There are different sizes and there are some enormous type of grouper as well. So if you're going to be doing a big grouper, you don't want to have it to 350 degrees or to 400, right? You want to bring down the temperature. And the reason why you want to bring down the temperature is because you want the fish to cook evenly. You don't want the fish to cook. Remember, I was telling you that fish doesn't have any connectivity tissue, right? So if the top get caramelized, cook, then the center is going to be raw, and you don't want your fish to be dry, especially if it is a lean fish. So it is also possible to bake in fillets or slice of fillet. So remember in the last lesson I showed you some pictures of some fish fillet, right? Same thing at very high temperatures. So if you're going to be doing a fish fillet, you can do that at very high temperature. Great care must be used in this case because the fish may cook in a minute or less. Remember, and you don't want those fish to get overcooked, right? And a few seconds too long might ruin it. So you need to be precise with your cooking time and your temperature. The effect of the high heat is almost like broiling, and the normal guidelines for broiling thin fish fillet should be followed as explained in the next section. So we're going to be seeing how you're going to be doing a broiler. So point number first is that it is possible to give a specific baking. It is not possible, sorry. It is not possible to give a specific baking time because fish vary so much in shape and composition. And this is what I was mentioning to you earlier, that depending on the type of fish that you use is going to be affecting your baking procedure. Fat fish and lean fish, they are different. They are different, and they cook in different temperature and timing. So this is why over here say that it is not possible to give a baking time. So for example, if I have a 5 pound fish, let's say I have a 5 pound mackerel. Oh, but you cannot find mackerel and you just find a 5 pound um, what type of fish with the red snapper. If I bake it for 15 minutes, that doesn't mean at 350 for, let's say to 360 degrees, and it took 15 minutes to cook, that doesn't mean that your fish, which is a red snapper or any other type of fish, will take 5 minutes to bake as well at the same temperature. Because fish are different in shape and compositions. Also, different ingredients and type of baking pan also affect the baking time. So even the tools that you use is going to be affecting the baking time. And over here we have some guidelines that can help you. For example, over here say measure the thickness of the fish at the thickest point. At 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 200 Celsius, bake time is about 10 minutes per inch, which is equivalent to 2.5 centimeter of thickness. So this is very important. You can use it, but of course, as I mentioned to you, there's not a specific time to do that. So you need to be very careful whenever you're going to be doing that. Number 5 says serve the baked fish with sauce or seasoned butter to enhance its moisture and um, improve the taste and everything. Serve with lime also enhance the fish. So over here we have you can serve your fish with seasoned butter, for example, lime, um, a lemon butter, which is just melted butter with garlic and lime juice. Or you can do a sauce, for example, a velouté sauce and so on, but we're going to be seeing that more ahead. If the fish is baked with moisture topping or sauce, it is no longer being cooked by a dry heat method. Remember when we were talking and when we were covering the science of cooking, there we talk about the dry heat method and the moist heat method cooking. So if you're just doing a baking fish in a baking pan, that is a dry heat method. But if you decide to put a sauce, top it with sauce or anything else, that is no longer being cooked by a dry heat method. So these are the guidelines that we want to cover whenever we're going to be baking fish. Okay, so after you have your guidelines for baking, you have done all your guidelines and everything. Now you need to learn how to do the procedure to do the baking correctly. So what are the procedures? First step, you are going to collect all your equipments and your food supplies. So you need to have that in hand, right? You need to have all your equipments, for example, baking pans, spatulas. Of course, your oven need to be on at the standard or the temperature that you best wish to use for baking your fish. Your food supplies, for example, your fish and your vegetables, and this is what is known as mise en place, right? Remember, you need to do your mise en place before you start, and we cover that topic, what that topic means, right? What that word means, bis and plus mean that you're going to have all your needed equipment on hands. So collect your equipment, baking pans, which we're going to be covering with foil, have it on hand, food supplies, onions, your fish, butter, oil, mushroom, jalapenos, or whatsoever you want to top your fish with. So that is the first thing you need to do. Second, prepare and season your fish. And it can be whole fish, it can be a steak, or it can be a fish fillet. And over here I put, as you see over here, I say as directed in the recipe. And of course, if you don't have a recipe, if you are just experimenting, it's up to you what you want to season it. You can put salt, black pepper, turmeric, basil, or rosemary, and what else you can put. You are free to put anything. Remember, over here I just teach you the theory, and you're going to be putting your flavor and to your taste. You're going to be adding your personal taste to your fish. So if you don't have a recipe, just make your own mixer, your own what is known as your own rub. And of course, you can put anything you want. For example, our local seasoning we have over here, what salt, black pepper, and garlic powder, onion powder, complete seasonal. You can put whatever flavor you want to put it. So you're going to be preparing your fish, season your fish. And something important, if you're going to be doing a whole fish, when it comes to baking, you know, whenever they do fry fish, and we're going to be covering this more ahead, they usually do cuts in between the flesh. When it comes to baking, I don't really recommend to do that, because remember the fish contains its moisture and contains water, and once you cut that, and whenever you bake, all that water is going to start to pour out. So if you do those cuts, your fish is going to start to be shrinking, because water moisture is going to be lost, and it's going to be easy to get overcooked. So you want to have a fish which can be very presentable. So whenever you do bake fish, don't do those cuts, that incisions they do to the flesh. But if you want to do it, it's up to you. But as I mentioned to you right now, it is not really recommended to do that. So place the fish on oiled or butter baking sheet. The same thing you do whenever you do a cake, that you say you put butter or oil and then you put flour so that your cake doesn't, your butter doesn't stick to the pan. The same thing you do with the fish. You are going to be placing the fish on an oil or butter baking sheet, or brush with top with oil or butter. That is what is known as basting. You are going to be brushing your fish with oil or butter. And remember, you can always add some extra season to your oil or to your butter, as I mentioned in the past slides. Of course, we have other alternative where you can follow. For example, you can dip the fish in oil or melted butter to coat both sides. For example, if you are doing like fish and chips, that you dip it in the butter to fry, the same thing you can do. You can have your oil and your melted butter. You just dip your fish inside there, take it also like that. Is going to be coated on both sides, and then place it on the baking sheet. And of course, as I mentioned to you at the beginning of this slide, you can add any topping that you want. For example, over here I have some examples. Say you can add some seasoned bread, crumbs, lemon slices, mushrooms, or any other vegetable garnish. Well, I put garnish, but these other vegetable: onion, sweet pepper, fresh jalapenos, what else? You can put tomatoes, garlic. As I mentioned to you, I am just giving you the theory, and you're going to be adding your taste, your personal taste. And of course, you can also add some sauce. That's up to you. And point number 5, bake it at 350 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit until done. If the fish is lean, very important, if the fish is lean and has no moist topping, based with oil or butter during baking. So what that means, if you're doing a whole fish and you know that the fish it doesn't have any oil any fat in the skin, in the flesh. For example, again, let's go back to the snapper. If you have a big snapper and you want to bake it, you know that is going to be that is dry, right? Meaning it is lean. So during your period where you're baking, you take it out of the baking of the oven, sorry, and of course you're going to have your oil or your butter on hand with with a small brush. You're just going to be dipping your brush in the oil or your butter, and you're going to be basting again and put it in. And this procedure is also done whenever you're doing ham or turkey, or at least I do it after I have the internal temperature I want from the ham, turkey, or chicken. I take out the foil, or if I have it with foil, and then every 10 or 15 minutes I take it out of the oven, take a big spoon, soup spoon, and I just pour the juice over it. That is known as basting. So that's going to be helping that the fish doesn't get dry. So you have to do that if the fish is lean. Now, if the fish is a fat fish, again, we go back to the tuna one or the salmon. You don't really have to be doing that. And you are not really have to be doing basting. The reason why is because remember those fish have the fats in their skin, and if you do baste, you take it every 15-10 minutes from the oven and so on, and you'll be brushing with oil at the end of the cooking period. Your fish is going to be greasy. So try to do only the basting with lean fish, not do it with fat fish. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so moist baking or braising. So this is very important because it can cause some confusion. That's why I decided to state this point over here in this lesson. So as we noted above or in the past slide, if fish is baked with moist ingredient or liquid, the method is no longer a dry heat method. And remember, we just talked about that in the past 2 or 3 slides before, right? So in French cooking, baking fish, which is usually whole fish or large pieces, with vegetables and a liquid is called braising. So whenever you're going to be doing fish and you're going to be adding a liquid or vegetables, that is not longer a dry heat method cooking. So it is a moist baking. So it is the correct name or the correct term for that is braising. But to avoid confusion with the braising method as applied to meat, we avoid that term and, sorry over here, I must press enter, that's why it broke. We avoid that term and refer to such dish as baking. So whenever you do that in meat, that is known as braising, but whenever you do this method, this procedure, or this technique in fish, even though the correct name is braising, in order to prevent confusion, we just call this plate or refer to this dish just as big fish. So the procedure of braising is almost the same thing for baking. There are only a few special features for that. So you can state it over here. We have 5 points over here for that one. So the first one says that the baking pan, sorry, should be just large enough to hold the fish. So you will not need too much liquid. So if you are going to be doing maybe like a 1 foot size fish, you are not going to be putting that fish in a 2 foot baking pan, right? You're going to be using a baking pan that is almost the same size. Once it can hold the fish, so like that, you are not going to be using too much liquid. Because remember, you are going to be doing a moist baking or braising, you are not going to be doing a soup. So you don't want to put too much liquid to that. So the bottom of the pan is buttered or oiled, then covered with a layer of sliced chopped vegetables such as carrots, onion, shallots, or mushroom, or you can put sorry any of your favorite vegetables. You can put carrots, you can put tomatoes, you can put sweet pepper, It's up to you. This I just put it as an example over here. I just put this one as an example. And the vegetables that you use can be raw or they can be sautéed before placing in the baking pan. And of course you can saute them with oil, coconut oil, veggie oil, olive oil, whatever is your favorite oil, or with butter. And then the fish is placed on the top of the vegetable. So that means that you are going to have your baking pan, then you're going to be placing your vegetables in the pan as a bed, and then you're going to be placing your fish on top of your vegetables. Also, that going to help you that the helps so that the fish doesn't stick to the baking pan, even though that the pan is already butter or oil. But remember, as I mentioned to you, baking pans make a great difference when it comes to baking. So frequently, point number three says frequently a small amount of liquids such as equal part of wine and fish stock. Now remember we discussed about fish stock about 4 lessons ago. Is added just enough liquid to use to cover the fish about halfway or less. And I just mentioned you that right that we are doing a moist baking, not a soup. So of course, if you're going to do a basing, are not going to be putting liquid to cover the whole fish, just a little, just to cover just halfway or less. And during the baking, the fish is based with the same liquid. And this is the same example I told you about the ham in the past life, that whenever I'm doing ham, turkey, or any type of meat bake, I usually take it out when it is almost done, and I just take a soup spoon and I just bathe the, like if I am bathing the meat with the same liquid. The same thing with that. We are going to be basting the fish with that same liquid. The fish may be baked uncovered or covered only lightly. So if you're going to be doing that, you are not going to be covering the baking pan completely with foil. You are just going to be covering that lightly, or you can do it uncovered as well. Remember that fish is very easy and very fast to cook, right? And why do you don't cover the fish lightly? I mean tight or only lightly? Because if you cover it tight, the liquid, remember that fish is going to start to release liquid, right? So what's going to happen? The liquid that you put, the sauce, I mean the fish stock that you put there is going to be diluted. So if you cover it only lightly, that is going to help that the liquid that you put inside there reduce, and the flavor is going to be more concentrated and more flavorful. You're going to have the flavor is going to be very enhanced. So that is very important whenever you're going to do braised fish or baked fish like that, and like this technique, you are not going to be covering the baking pan completely. Just help it, just cover it lightly. Remember, we want that liquid that you add to dilute a little bit, because as I mentioned to you, the fish is going to start to release liquid, and the sauce that you put or the stock that you put is going to be diluted. So the flavor is going to be very poor, and you want that flavor to be intense, concentrated, very flavorful. So for service, the fish is removed from the dish. The liquid is strained, degreased, reduced, and finished in different ways. For example, you can add butter, you can add cream, or you can add a velouté sauce. So that is very important. If you're going to be doing this technique over here, you don't want your flavor, your gravy, or that liquid that you add to be diluted, right? You want the flavor to be intense. So after you do that, you take out, you strain and remove all those residues, and you at the end you're going to be adding your favorite flavor. Can be butter, cream, or a value sauce. And over here, point 6, you can see that this is a sort of combination technique because it's often used wine and other liquid. The method is in some way similar to poaching in wine. So we're going to be covering that more ahead about poaching in wine. All right, so in this slide, you have some pictures, right? This is an example of braising fish. You can see it over here. You can see that the juices inside is reduced. It's not very thick, right? It's not like a soup. The same thing over here, as you can see it. And over here, you see that the person who did this have his own flavor. He got some tomatoes, peppers, some chives, and so on. So the same thing with you. As I mentioned to you over here, I am just teaching you the technique. At the end of the day, you are the one who's going to be adding your taste to your fish. So this is just examples so you can know how does it look or how is the procedure done. All right. All right. So the next topic is broiling and grilling. Broiling and grilling. So what does broiling and grilling means? Broiling and grilling seafood items like grilled meat are increasingly popular. Customers perceive them as simple and more helpful and because they are prepared quickly. So a lot of customers already prefer grilled fish or broiled fish because they are simple, healthier, and they can be done very quickly. Grilled dishes are simple and straightforward, but they lend themselves to many variations in presentation. So grilled fish you can have they're simple and straightforward, but you can do them a lot of variation when it comes into presentation. So for example, over here it says by varying sauces, vegetables, accompaniments, and garnishes, you can offer a great assortment of grilled fish on the menu. So you can add different type of sauces, you can add different type of vegetables, and you can put different garnishes. So that later you can have a big assortment of grilled fish on your menu. For example, let's say you're going to be doing a grilled fish. You can do grilled fish with maybe, well, like how they do it here in Belize, the local dish. It is grilled fish with coleslaw or green salad with coconut rice or rice and beans and fried plantain. So you can build your own menu using grilled fish and the different type of variation in presentation that you can think about it. And because the sauces and accompaniments are generally prepared ahead of time, the dishes are still quick to prepare, even if the presentation is elaborated. So, for example, if you work in a restaurant and you have grilled fish, and of course, in a restaurant, you usually do baked potatoes, you do mashed potatoes, you do rice and beans, white rice, green salad, coleslaw, pico de gallo, fried plantain, and if you work in a high volume restaurant, of course you need to have all of that prepared, right? So even if the presentation is elaborated, you already have all your sides fixed, so it's going to be very quick. So this is what is the advantage of when it comes to grilling fish. All right, but whenever you're going to be doing a presentation, it is important to have like a slightly crisp brown or a grill mark on the surface of your fish, and this helps to appeal of grilling or broiled fish. So whenever you're going to do that, you should never cover the item with sauce, meaning that if you have the fish, if you're going to do like a velusas or any other size to a fumet or anything to cover it, you're not going to be putting your fish and you're going to be pouring the whole fish with sauce. That doesn't really look really that presentable. So do not serve too much sauce. A small piece of seasoned butter or a drizzle of flavored condiment sauce can be used to decorate the top of the item. You just need to put a little bit of that. In most other cases, it's better to place sauces on the side. Appropriate helpful sauces include vegetable squills, and for those who don't know what are vegetable squills, that is a sauce that looks like a puree. You can Google that, and you're going to see the example is like vegetables. It's a sauce that looks like a puree. And salsas, for example, one of the most common or known salsa is the pico de gallo. For a richer dish, Beurre blanc is a good accompaniment, especially for lean fish like halibut or local snapper. So whenever you're going to be serving your food, plating your fish, don't top the fish with too much sauce. It is better if you can just put a little bit, maybe. Well, when I used to work in restaurant, I used to do grilled fish. I just used to put a little bit of lemon garlic butter. And what is that? As I mentioned to you, it's just butter, garlic, and lime juice. Everything mixed together, and I just used to base that with a little bit of that when I serve the food. And I used to take a small container, and I used to put some lemon garlic sauce inside there on the side for the customer. If they want more, they can just put it for their can put it for their how much they want to eat, right? Because not everybody are the same. Not everybody likes to have their food full of sauce. For example, when it comes to barbecue, not everybody like to put the meat, the tortillas, the chicken or pork, and then they put the barbecue sauce on top. Some people don't like their tortilla to be full of barbecue sauce. They just prefer the chicken and the barbecue and the tortilla, flour tortilla on the side. So everybody different. So you just put that sauce into the on the side in a small container in a ramekin, and then the customers, they can put sauce to their own discretion. You just put a little bit of sauce on top of that just to enhance the flavor, but you are not going to be covering everything. And another popular approach to serve the fish without a sauce, except for a small depth of condiments such as relish or chutney. If you have like a relish, you can just top a little bit of relish or a chutney. Uh, and, and, to and to complement the fish with an attractive variation of vegetables. So you're going to be using your starch, your vegetables, and the sauce. So this is how you're going to be working with your fish. So remember, just as a simple review, you can have grilled fish in a menu with a lot of variation. As I mentioned to you, you can do it with rice, baked potatoes, um, French fries, rice and beans, and you can top your fish with a little bit of sauce, but not too much. Just put a little bit just to enhance the flavor, and put the rest of the sauce in a ramekin so that the customers can access it their own discretion. And of course, you're going to be, if you don't want to put any sauce, if you have like relish or chutneys, you can just put that as well. And of course, you're going to be complementing your fish with an attractive variation of vegetables, which can be onion, bell pepper, chow, or what else? Your favorite vegetable. You can add your flavor to that. It doesn't really have to be the one I tell you, but you are at the end of the day, you are the one who's going to be cooking that for your own self or for somebody else, and you can just add their vegetables, their favorite vegetables or sauce. All right, so guidelines for broiling and grilled fish. This is important. As in baking, there are also guidelines to do this You're not just going to be broiling or grill fish like that. There are some guidelines to be followed in order to have a perfect broiled or grilled fish. Alright, so when it comes to do broiling, there the heat is very high, so you need to be very careful whenever you do broiling, so like that you don't overcook the fish, or even in the worst cases you can burn the fish. So the broiler, the heat is very intense, so you need to be very careful whenever you're going to be doing that, to overcook or burn the fish. So select the appropriate fish for broiling or grilling. For example, if you're going to be doing a broil, right, or grill, you're not going to be grilling sardines or any small fish, right? You need to know the correct type of fish and size that can be done in broiling or grilling. Small slices of thin fillet are usually too delicate to be placed directly on the grill of a broiler or grilled. So if you're going to have a small fillet, of course you're not going to be placing that in the grit of the broiler or the grill, right? As I mentioned to you, you need to know the correct size and the correct type of fish to do that. Arrange them on oil sheet pans, the same thing as whenever you're going to be baking. Broiler platter, if you have platter that can resist that, especially for broiler, you can use those, or other baking sheet or pans, and cook under the broiler. So whole fish or thick slice for firm fish such as salmon, grouper, etc. can be placed directly on the grill if care is taken to avoid breaking them up. Be sure the grid is clean and oiled to prevent sticking. So if you're going to be doing grill, for example, if you have a flat top and you just cook something there, you're not going to be placing your fish where it is burned, right? Before you put your fish to the grid of the grill, you need to clean it, and then you're going to be greasing that so that the fish doesn't stick to your grid. So this is very important over there. So the oil, remember, as you see over here, we're talking a lot of the oil. So the oil is important, plays a very important role in this section. Fat fish, again, fat fish is better for broiling because they don't get as dry as lean fish. So if you want to do a grilled fish, it's better if you use a fat fish, type of fat fish. Remember, sardines are fat fish. They drop under the category of fat fish, but because of their size, they are not recommended for grilling or broiling. They can easily get overcooked or they can easily get burned. And remember, I mentioned you this before, that even though you remove the fish, the meat, chicken, steak, whatsoever you have on the grill, you have it on the heat, even though you remove them from there, they still continue to cook after removing because they do what is known as absorption. They absorb heat, and that is why you need to be careful in selecting your fish, the size when it comes to grilling or broiling. So however, all fish, fat or lean, should be coated with fat before broiling to reduce drying. So even if it is fat fish or lean fish, it is recommended to coat them with fat. And as again I tell you, fat can be anything: oil, butter, and the oil and butter can also be flavored, and this is going to be helping to before broiling to reduce drying. So remember, when you're going to be doing broil, there's an equipment in the kitchen which is known as salamandra. It's like an oven, but in this case the salamandra, well, they have different variations of salamandra. Some of them are electrical, meaning that they have like a core inside, and the same thing like the electric stove, you see that it stays red. intense, right? The same thing with those salamandra. They have that same metaphor over there, and they produce seeds there, right? And you can just put your fish inside there to cook. Or the next one are the gas, the butane one, that you put it on like an oven, but in this case the fire is in the top, it's not in the bottom, it's in the top. That's why it says over here, I stated over here, that even if the fish is fat or lean, it should always be coated with fat before broiling. Because remember, if you put it there, the fish is going to get dry, even if it is fat fish or lean fish. So you have to coat them before you put it in the salamandra. You're not just going to be putting the fish over there, because if it is, even if it is dry, if it is fat fish, it's going to get dry. Lean fish may be dragged in flour before dipping in oil or melted butter. So whenever you're going to do that, you want to put it in a little bit of flour, right? Like if you're doing fried chicken. But of course, we are going to be removing the excess. We are not going to put in the flour and then take it everything and just dip it in the oil or melted butter. Because then the flour is going to be, the flour, remember the flour contains starch, contains gluten, and of course all of that is going to get caramelized. Then your flavor is not going to be that good. So if you're going to dip that in flour, dip that lean fish in flour, you have to shake it to remove the excess flour over there, and then you're going to be dipping in oil or melted butter. So over here says that the flour helps to form a flavorful brown crust. But as I mentioned to you right now, you are not going to be putting the fish in the flour and just pour it over there, because then the fish is going to have a lot of flour in it. So the flavor is not going to be good, it's going to taste like corn. So you just have to shake it to remove the excess. So point number 5 says, instead of being dragged in with flour, fish may be coated with fat and then with breadcrumbs or cornmeal. Now, if you don't want to put them in flour, if you don't want to do this technique in number 4, you can also put them in fat. You can put them with fat, and then you can put them with breadcrumbs, sorry, or cornmeal. If you don't want to put flour, you can always substitute with breadcrumbs. But in this case, because the cornmeal and the breadcrumbs are more thicker, they're going to be hard to get um, stick to the fish. So in this case, you have to do the opposite. You have to first coat the fish with fat, and then you have to pat them in breadcrumbs or cornmeal. So use caution, as breadcrumbs are burned very easily. That breadcrumbs burn very easily. Remember, breadcrumbs are regular bread. They are just toasted and then they are grained. And remember, bread contains a lot of other ingredients. Contains sugar, contains milk, contains eggs, and so on. So that's the reason why it is easily to get burned. Plus, the bread have to be toasted, a little bit toasted, before getting grind to turn them into crumbs. Use this technique only with items that cook quickly. So this technique is mostly used when it comes to fish fillet. For example, if you have a 5-pound fish or a 5-pound fish fillet, you're not going to be doing this technique, right? Because it's going to burn the cornmeal, the breadcrumbs, or the flour is going to get burned, totally burned, and your fish is going to be raw. Then it's going to be, you're going to need to remove all the burn stuff, and at the end you're going to stay over there with a raw fish, and you don't want that, right? So use this only with items that can be cooked, or cut fish cut that can be cooked very quickly. If the fish have an attractive skin, this is very important, because this is in one of your questions in your test. If the fish has an attractive skin, such as the red snapper or the black sea bass, sorry, the skin may be left on. We're not going to remove the skin. The skin may be left on and used as the presentation side. Remember this part, because this question is coming in your test. This enhances the presentation and also helps to hold the fish together or the flesh together. So this is very important. Also over here, um, I just read it over here, somewhere around here. But this part number 6 is very important because this part is going to be in your test. So if the skin of the fish, if you buy fish fillet and you see that the skin is very attractive, you don't remove it. Well, this is only if you work in a restaurant, right? Or if you have food service, do catering and so on. This is for you to remember. So if the fish it have a very attractive skin, you're not going to be removing it. You left it on and you're going to be using that part as the side of the presentation. Apart of that, that helps the flesh of the fish to stay together. So make sure that the fish is truly scaled. This is very important. You make sure that the fish fillet it doesn't have any scaled along. Have to be truly scaled. To prevent splitting during cooking, cut the skin with a sharp knife. Make a series of parallel cuts across the fish or cutting in a diamond pattern for larger fish. For smaller fillets, scoring may not be necessary. So if you have a small say, fillet, you are not going to be making those incisions, right? The parallel cut. Now, if you're going to have a big fish, it is recommended to do that, but only if it is grilled or broiled, not whenever you're going to be doing baking. Remember that point. Broil fish to order and serve immediately. So if you work in a restaurant, if you or maybe if you are planning to work in a restaurant in the future, become a chef or a cook, you are not going to be broiling your fish and then keep them in the refrigerator and then just warm them in the microwave whenever you have an order. No, you're not going to be doing that. If you work in a restaurant or you have a catering service, you're going to be broiling the fish to order. For example, if you have an order, if you have a restaurant, say one broiled fish, in that very moment, you're going to take your fish and you're going to be broiling it and you're going to be serving that immediately. Broiled fish, well, okay, this part is for whenever you're going to be plating your food. Broiled fish may be garnished lightly with paprika or many colors is desired. So that's up to you. As I mentioned to you over here, I'm just giving you the technique, the procedure. But do not overdo it. So remember, you don't want to have a plate that look like a rainbow, right? Remember, we tell you when we were talking about garnishes, we say that you can put two or three the most things for to enhance the color and the presentation of the plate. And point number 9 says the thick cuts should be turned once during broil in order to cook evenly. Thin pieces may be arranged and oiled on an oil pan and broiled on one side only. Lobster is also broiled without turning. So if you have maybe like a 1-inch fish fillet and you want to broil that, you are going to broil one part, the top, and of course you are going to be taking it out, turn it over upside down, and then you put it back in the salamanca for the broiler to finish the cooking process. So like that is going to be cooking evenly. Now if the fillet is just maybe like 2 centimeters or more or less, you are just going to put that in a greased baking pan and just do it in one side. You don't really have to be turning over that. And lobster is also broiled without turning. And remember that I just mentioned to you that even though you remove that from the heat, that still continue cooking because it absorbs the heat of the grid. All right. So, procedure for broiling and grilling fish. Of course, there is a procedure as well. You learn the guidelines, but now the procedure. So over here, you see I have some pictures. You see the man, he's doing a grilled fish and he is basting over here. He's basting his fish so it doesn't get dry. And over here we have a next one, fish fillet, and you see over here is seasoned already and it's in a baking pan. You see it over here, right? See the pointer. So what are the procedures for that for broiling and grilling? First of all, collect all the equipment and food supplies. That is a must. Doesn't matter what type of cooking method you're going to be doing, you need to do this step first. This is what is known as mise en place. Prepare the fish as required, season and coat with oil or butter, with flour and then fats, or with fat and then breadcrumbs or cornmeal. You are going to decide which one you want to do, but remembering the procedure or the guidelines that I just told you right now about this part, fat and breadcrumbs. For example, you see this one over here, right? This look a little bit thick. Of course, I don't want to do the put fat to this and add breadcrumbs and cornmeal to this because it's going to burn. But to this one, as you can see it over here, that was going to be going to be perfect for that, very good for that. I put fat and add breadcrumbs and cornmeal or cornmeal to this, and then broil it. Preheat the broiler or grill, very important, that need to be preheated. With a wire brush, remove burned or charred particles of the food from the broiler grill or grill. Brush the with grit. Brush the grit with an oiled cloth or coat it lightly with oil. So you're going to be brushing that. That is what in Spanish they call it purgar. So you're going to be brushing the grit of the grill or the broiler with an oil. Broil thick cuts on one side, then turn once. Broil thin piece on one side only. For example, if you're going to be broiling this, you will need to flip it over after maybe a couple minutes or couple seconds afterwards. Now, if the fish fillet is thin like this one, you don't really need to flip it over. It can just be broiled in one side. Broil, all right. Serve immediately with appropriate sauce and garnish. So after that, you're not going to be waiting 5-10 minutes to serve it, right? As you finish the cooking process in the broiling or grilling, you're going to be serving that. So that is very important. All right, so sautéing and pan frying. Sautéing and pan frying, and these usually give a lot of confusion, so I decided to put those one together. All right, so the points over here says, as in meat cookery, the exact distinction between sautéing and pan frying fish is impossible to draw. For many purposes, the two terms are used interchangeably. A classic method of sautéing fish is called à la manure. This is a French term. In this preparation, the product is drenched in flour and sautéed in clarified butter or oil. It is then plated with lime juice and chopped parsley and fresh prepared hot brown sauce. Is poured over it. So hot sauce is the prepared hot sauce is poured over it. When the hot butter hits the lemon juice, it creates a froth. The fish should be served at once. You're not waiting, you have to serve that at once. Other sauteed fish preparation may call for standard breading procedure or for dredging the fish with a product that has flour, such as cornmeal. Also, a variety of garnish may be used. So over here you see, this is what we are going to be talking about, the procedure known as a la manure. You can see over here have the pronunciation. So once you do that, you're going to be serving your fish with chopped parsley or fresh prepared hot brown sauce, or I mean butter. And of course, you are going to be serving that immediately. Of course, as I mentioned to you, you are not going to be waiting 10 minutes to serve that, or 5 minutes. You are going to be serving that immediately. The procedure and variation just described apply to most popular satay and pan-fried fish recipes. In general, because most type of fin fish are also delicate, especially if fillet, they do not lend themselves to a great many satay variation. Rather, variety is created with accompaniment, sauce, and garnishes. On the other hand, firm shellfish like shrimp and scallop are easy to saute, and there is a great variation of recipe for them. So, saute, very important. Whenever you're going to be doing saute fish, you're not going. It's not like if you're doing regular saute vegetable that you put the fish and you're just going to be shaking your baking pans. Saute. Remember that saute is a French term as well, which means jump, right? So in fish, you cannot do that, but you can do what is known as pan frying, or what is called over here, this term, as you can see it over here, which is known as la manière. So sauteing majority of times can come in shellfish like shrimp, scallops, and other type of shellfish, and for that they have a lot of variation. So this is what satay and pan fry means. All right, so the guideline for satay and pan frying fish and shellfish. Of course, we also have guidelines for this. Lean fish are especially well suited to satay because the cooking method supplies fat that fish lack. Fat fish may also be sauteed as long as you take care not to get it too greasy. So for this one, when you're going to be doing satay fish, it's better to do it with lean fish, not fat fish, because it can get very greasy. Satay fish is usually given a coat of flour, breading, or other starchy product before sauteing. This forms a crust that browns attractively, enhances the flavor, and helps hold the fish together and prevent sticking. So whenever you're going to be doing satay fish, you put it in the flour. Of course, remember whenever you're going to do anything that comes to flour, any meat, you always need to shake it to remove the excess flour or breading or any other starchy product that you're going to be using for them. So that helps to enhance flavor, create a brown attractive crust, and of course it's going to help the fish to stay together and prevent it from sticking to the baking pan. Fish may be soaked in milk or egg wash briefly before dragging into flour. This helps the flour form a good crust. So before you put that into the flour, you put it in egg wash or milk. You season it, put it. Of course, you're just going to put it just 1 second. Just put it there, take it out. You're not going to leave that inside there for 5 minutes, right, to observe, because you're going to be removing all the seasoning you put to your fish. Just put it there, shake it a little bit to remove the excess liquid, and then put it in the flour, and then you're going to be shaking it again to remove the excess flour or any other starchy product you're going to use to create that. So that's going to help that to form a very good crust. Clarified butter and oil are the preferred fat for sauteing and pan frying butter. Something important when it comes to clarified butter. Clarified butter is not, well, clarified butter of course comes from butter, right? But it is not the same butter that we usually use. It remember that blue bonnet, and I cannot believe it's not butter. All of that is not butter. They are what is known as margarine. Butter comes from fat of the milk cow. So clarified butter is very easy and simple to do. Get your butter, real butter of course, put it in a frying pan, and you just put it in the fire very low. Then of course you're going to be seeing two layers in the top. You're going to be seeing the fat, I mean the liquid, and in the bottom you're going to be seeing the fat. So like that, you just try to remove with a spoon very slowly and carefully. Remember removing the liquid from the top and stay with the fat. That is the same thing the Hindus use, which is known as ghee. Well, that is something else. This is just a point I wanted to make clear for you. So whole butter is likely to burn unless the fish item are very small. So as I mentioned to you right now in the butter, you see over here, from since I started this lesson, I have been mentioning about clarified butter. And why I mentioned clarified butter? Because clarified butter can resist heat, but whole butter is likely to burn, easily to burn. That's why I talk over here more about clarified butter. So that's why I was explaining to you how clarified butter is made. Of course, you can buy clarified butter. I'm not really sure if they sell it in Belize, even though I think so. Maybe you can find it in the Hindu stores where they sell Hindus ingredients, and the most common one is what is known as the ghee, G-E-E, that is clarified butter. So it is better to use clarified butter because whole butter tends to burn very easily. And use a minimum of fat. You are not going to be putting a lot of fat, right? Because you're not going to be doing fried chicken or fried fish, sorry. You're not going to be frying, but we're going to be seeing the frame more ahead. You only use about 1/8 inch or 3 millimeters, or enough to cover the bottom of the pan. That is enough. You're not going to be putting a lot just to cover, like if you're going to be doing a braised fish, right? You're just putting a little bit just to cover the bottom of the pan, just to help to get that crust and to help that the fish doesn't get stick to the baking pan. Observe the guidelines for the basic sautéing procedure. Be sure that the pan is hot before adding the fish to it. So if you're going to put the oil or the clarified butter, you're not going to be putting the fish immediately, right? You need to be sure that it is hot. After the item has begun to cook, adjust the heat as necessary. So if it is too hot, you put your fish, you believe it too hot, you are just going to be playing with the fire. Bring it low or bring it high. You have to learn to play with the fire. Very large fish may be browned in fat and then finished in the oven uncovered. You say over here, guys, very important. You are just going to, if you see it is getting browned, but it's not cooking that fast, you are going to take it out and you're going to finish that in the oven. Uncovered, very important, uncovered. And also, over here I stated, in the oven, not in the salamandra or the microwave. You are going to finish this in the oven. Very important. Brown the most attractive side. Again, this is very important because this part is going to come in your test, or is coming in your test. Brown the most attractive side, which is also known as the presentation side. First, for example, if one side looks kind of rough and the next side look very smooth, the part that is very smooth with the attractive side is going to be your presentation side. So there is it. This is an answer for your question. I think it's question number 6. I can't really remember good. So you're going to be browning that side first. For fillet, it is usually the flesh side or the side against the bone, not the skin side. So when you're going to do fillet, it is usually the flesh side where the bone go against the bone, not the skin side. Remember, there are some fillet that come with skin, and I just mentioned that some slide before. But if you buy fillet that doesn't have any skin, You are going to be using the part with the bone, where the bone goes. That is going to be your presentation side. Handle the fish carefully during and after cooking to avoid breaking the fish or the crisp crust. You need to handle that very carefully. Saute or fry to order and immediately serve. So over here, part number 10, that's going to be your side. Saute or fry to order immediately and serve. So you're not going, again, you're not going to be waiting, right, 10 minutes to serve. You're going to be serving immediately. All right, so before before this at the beginning of this lesson, I tell you about, we heard about this, right? A la manière. So procedure to cook for cooking fish a la manière. So you can see it over here. I have some pictures over here. You can see it, right? So what are the procedure? Collect our equipment and food supply. Again, very important. Heat a small amount of clarified butter in a saucepan or a sautepan. Season the fish and dredge in flour. Shake off excess. Remember I told you that too. Shake it to remove excess. That goes for egg wash, milk, and flour. Or cornmeal or any breadcrumbs whatsoever we are going to be using. Place the fish in the pan. Presentation side down. Remember the presentation side always go down. When it comes to cooking, right? Go down. Saute the fish, turning once with a spatula until both sides are brown and the fish just cook through. Okay, saute. You are going to be turning the fish with a spatula. You see it over here, I put it over here with a spatula. We're not going to have fish and you're going to saute it like if you're doing a omelette or if you're doing saute vegetables. You are just going to turn it once with a spatula. Even though it is saute, you have to turn it with a spatula. Remove the fish from the pan with a spatula and place on a serving plate presentation side up. So you will see over here, you see the fish have the skin, right? You see the skin is crisp, a very, very beautiful texture. And you see that over here, they place the skin up. And over here, you see, this you can see the center over here, meaning that this was the part where the bone was found. So over here, this is going to be the presentation side, nowhere the skin comes. Unless the fillet have the skin like this one, you're going to use that part as the presentation. But in most cases in fillet, you're going to be using the part where the bone was before, was plain. So sprinkle the fish with lemon juice and chopped parsley. You can see over here, we got parsley, and over here is just adding a little bit of sauce, the clarified butter with lemon, I believe. Yes, that is what I say that because that is how I usually serve. That's why I say lemon juice with butter and garlic. Heat some raw butter in a saute pan until it is lightly brown. Pour it over the fish immediately. Serve at once. So serve immediately. No 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes after. You see over here? This is what they are doing over here. So this is how you're going to be cooking fish on a manure. Very easy. Alright guys, so deep frying. Deep frying guys, this is our next topic. Deep frying is perhaps the most popular method of preparing fish. I remember when I used to work in an island, the manager, whenever he used to go fishing and he used to bring fish that were not too big, not too small, he used to tell me, do me some dry fry fish. They call it dry fry here in Belize, right? But um, deep frying is one of the most popular method of preparing fish. I am, for example, I remember my cousins, my grandmother, my mother, whenever they get fish, the first thing they, well, my mother is not too much because she is a cook as well, so she knows how to prepare fish in several ways. But I see when my grandmother or my aunt they buy fish, the first thing they do is fry fish. Everything is fried. I have never seen them do baked fish or fish a la manière or braised fish or so on. Everything is deep fried. So deep frying perhaps the most popular method of preparing fish. While fried fish may not be the most suitable or refined preparation, it can be of very high quality if the fish is fresh and not overcooked. The frying fat is of good quality and the item is served without delay after cooking. So frying fat plays an important role over here. You are never going to be frying fish with olive oil, right? Olive oil is for cooking and flavoring only, not for frying. Please remember that point. I already see a lot of people using olive oil for frying. So frying olive oil is not for frying at all. It is just for cooking, and when I talk cooking, it's just like sautéing. Pan frying, you can use olive oil, but for deep frying, olive oil is not a good option. So lean fish, either small or whole fish or small portion sorry, such as fillet or steak, and shellfish such as shrimp, clam, oyster, and scallop are best for deep frying. This is our next important point because this is coming in your test. We're going to be hearing, we're going to be seeing this question, which shellfish and fish are best suited for deep frying. Fish to be fried is breaded, floured, or buttered to protect it from frying fat and to protect the frying fat from it. So whenever you're going to do, okay, this is very important as well because this is going to come in your test as well in one of these questions. So why do you put flour to your fish whenever you're going to be frying? To protect the fish from the frying oil and also to protect the frying oil from the fish so that the frying oil doesn't taste like fish afterwards. Even though it will absorb a little bit of flavor, the flavor is not going to be too intensified if you put flour. Also, the breading flour or butter helps to provide a crisp, flavorful, and attractive coating. Frozen breaded fish portions are widely used. For example, if you're going to doing, for example, fish finger, if the fish fillet, if the cut are half frozen, it is much easier to be managed. They should be fried without defrosting. Fried fish is usually served with lemon and or a cool sauce such as tartar, remoulade, I put remoulade over here, cocktail sauce on the side. Also, some butter recipes are suitable for fish as well as for vegetable, and this butter is known as tempura. Tempura. For example, there is one of the most famous fried fish, which is known as fish and chips. You make a batter made from flour. You can put beer to that instead of water, baking powder, and you put some your favorite seasoning. You can put chopped parsley, dried parsley, salt, black pepper. You season your way. You pour the fish inside there, shake it for a second, and then you just fry it, and you're going to have a crispy, brown, crispy coat with is flavorful because you season it, of course, and you're going to be serving that with tartar sauce and French fries. That is an English dish. When I talk English, I mean it comes originally from England. That is known as the fish and chips. Very, very famous here in Belize. Almost all restaurants in Belize, I think they do it. They serve that fish and chips. And that same batter can be used for frying vegetables, vegetable tempura. For example, you can put broccoli, cauliflower, onion rings with that same butter, but that's something else. So that is what they define. So very important, guys. Remember this point: lean fish, either small fish or small portions, such as fillet or sticks, which is also known as fingers, fish finger. Shellfish, such as shrimp, clams, oyster, and scallop are best for deep frying. And why do you put flour to your fish? To protect the fish from the frying oil and to protect the frying oil from the fish. Also because it provides a crispy, flavorful, and attractive coating. So this is our next question for your test that is coming on. Here you see an example of deep fried fish and fried seafood, sorry. This is the one I was telling you, fish and chips, you see? This is the fish in the butter. I'm pretty sure we do this already in practical. I am 100% sure we do this one, fish and chips. Sure we do that. I can't really remember which practical was that, which number, but I remember we did this one. Some of you class did this one, fish and chips. The French fries, tartar sauce over here, lime wedge, and a piece of parsley just for garnish. Our Galician local, right? The fried fish, rice, beans, olive, tostones. One of my favorite over here, which is the fried shrimp with cocktail sauce. Oh, I love fried shrimp, very delicious. And next one of my favorites over here, fried calamari, which is also the fried calamari, just the name, but it comes from the squid. This is very delicious as well. One of my favorite. I like this one with the cocktail sauce or the tartar sauce over here. You can see it over here. And over here we have a whole bunch of high cholesterol. Well, I call it high cholesterol because shellfish are very high in cholesterol. So over here you'll see we have some shrimp, some lobster and shrimp over here, and so on. You can see a variation of this is a seafood platter. This is how they call it, seafood platter. You can see it over here. Believe me, if you eat this is a delicacy. Very nice. I love these ones. Seafood, shellfish are my favorite. I'm not really big fan of fish, but I do like a lot of shellfish, even though it is not too healthy to eat it. I mean, it got contains minerals and some vitamins for us, but eating too much this in excess contains a lot of high cholesterol and can make you sick. All right, next slide. All right, sorry about that, guys. So poaching and simmering. Poaching and simmering. This is the next topic that confuses a lot of people. Poaching is cooking in a liquid at very low heat. So that is what poaching means. We are going to be cooking in a liquid at very low heat. Fillet and other, when I talk fillet, I'm talking about fish, right? Fish fillet and other small portion are sometimes cooked in a small amount of liquid, usually fish fumet and or wine, or some other cases can be combined, both of them, and served with a sauce made from the poaching liquid. So for example, if you do a fish fumet together with the wine and you poach the fish there, at the end when the fish is done, you're going to be using that same liquid to make a sauce. This procedure is called a shallow poaching because the item is only partially submerged in the liquid. Whole fish and thick steak may be cooked completely submerged in a seasoned liquid which is called a court-bouillon. This is a next French term, this one, the court-bouillon. The liquid is not used to make sauce and the fish may not be served hot or cold. The process is called to be submersion method. So this process is called the submersion method because these are two distinctive procedures. We are going to discuss them separately. So over here we see that fillet or small portion of fish are used or are cooked by using fish fumet or wine, or in some cases combined, and they are served with a sauce made with the same liquid they use for poaching. And in other cases, when they do whole fish or big fish fillet, they use a liquid which is called a Court-bouillon. And remember, I was telling you at the beginning of this lesson what is a Court-bouillon. Tell you that it is a sauce, a stock, sorry, which is also known as the quick stock, meaning that it is used only vegetables and doesn't contain any fat, any animal gelatin. So, and with this one, you don't use it to make any sauce. You don't use this to make any sauce. But we're going to be discussing those two separately. All right, the first one, the submission method, the poaching and simmering in court-bouillon. Court-bouillon may be defined as water containing seasoning, herbs, and usually an acid used for cooking fish. The meaning that the name means short broth or quick broth in French, so called because it is made quick unlike stock. So they call this, it is just water, herbs, seasoning, and in other cases it contain an acid. Remember, you can get acid from any source, can be lime, orange juice, tomatoes, and so on. They are produce acid, and it means short broth, and it is not like a stock. It is quick and it is not take procedure like when you are making a stock. In quality food service, this method is perhaps used more often for cooking large whole fish to be decorated and served cold on a buffet. So there usually this method is used more for large fish which can be used to serve on a buffet. That means that they can keep their can keep them cold. They don't really have to be served immediately. Slightly high simmering temperature are used for cooking crustaceans, remember, such as lobster, crab, and shrimp. The famous preparation called trade or the blue throat, I just use this term better. The famous preparation called the blue throat is made by poaching trout that are alive until cooking time. The fish must be alive and must be washed in order for the fish to turn blue. But this is something else. Live fish have to have a protective liver coating on the skin, and the blue color results from the vinegar in the court-bouillon reacting with this coating. So this one is just a cooking technique, the blue truth. And over here, as you see that is made with fish that are alive. And because of the coating they have on the skin, make a chemical reaction with the acid in the court-bouillon, and that's going to give a result of turning the fish blue. To be honest, I have never done do this, and I don't think I will have the heart to do it as well. Because killing an animal that is alive is, I think, is kind of. I think I would not have the heart to do this. So there are certain things that in culinary art that I don't really do. So these ones, I don't think I will have the heart to cook a fish that's still alive. All right. So this is what is the submersion method, which is known as the poaching and simmering in court-bouillon is. So this last point is just a cooking technique. Okay, so the guidelines for poaching fish in court-bouillon. Again, we have guidelines to do this, right? So for this one, both fish and lean fish can be cooked by this method. So there's any problem with that. You can use any fish. So the seasoned liquid, which is water, of course, can just be salted water. And of course, you can add some ingredients, flavor ingredients such as spices, herbs, and mirepoix, and acids such as lemon juice, vinegar, and white wine. And whenever you do that, um, You need to put all the ingredients in the water and cook it for a couple of minutes to extract the flavor of the ingredient you're using. And then when all the flavors are extracted, you're going to be adding your fish. The cooking temperatures over here is 160 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. So the fish can start to cook at 160 degrees Fahrenheit. That's enough temperature to be cooking fish. And it's going to reduce the likelihood and for of overcooking. So that temperature is okay. Like that, you're not going to be running any risk to overcook the fish. High temperatures are harmful to the delicate texture and flavor of the fish. Now, lobster, which are shellfish, of course, right? Shellfish such as lobster, crab, and shrimp may be cooked at a simmering because their texture is less fragile. So, number 5 and number 6, the star shellfish, which are the small fish and portion cooked in hot liquid to preserve flavors are there just poured in hot liquid to preserve their flavor, and large fish in cold liquid to cook more evenly and to avoid sudden contraction with the split in the skin and spoil the appearance. So this is very important. So you need to follow these guidelines too when it comes to poach fish in Court-bouillon. Okay, so in point number 6, very important as well. If you're going to be doing this, it is best if you have a rack for poaching, because like that is going to be easy for you to remove the fish, and like that the liquid is not going to be damaging the texture of your fish and the appearance as well. And of course, you're going to be wrapping the fish in if you don't have these utensils, you can also use cheesecloth, so it can be easily to lift it out, or tie the fish loosely on a board. So this is other these are our other alternative if you don't have any rack for poaching. But if you have the rack, this is even better. So like that, you can remove it easily from the liquid, and that is not going to be damaged. And of course, you're going to be serving that with the appropriate sauce. And there are some sauces, for example, the Hollandaise sauce, which is remember, this is one of the mother sauce comes from the Hollandaise. Remember what? And for hot fish, and a mayonnaise based sauce for cold fish. Mild vinaigrettes go well with both hot and cold poached fish. So it doesn't matter if it is hot or cold, you can use this one. So whenever you do your poach and fish in Court-bouillon, you can use the appropriate sauce for that. Hollandaise, which is a mother sauce, French mother sauce, or you can use just mayonnaise based sauce for cold fish, or mild vinaigrette that can go good with both hot or cold poached fish. Alright, so the procedure for poaching fish in Court-bouillon fish and shellfish. This goes for both of them. So of course, as I mentioned before, collect all the equipment and the food supply. Prepare the Court-bouillon, which is the salted water with all the flavors you want to add and vegetables. Place the fish on a suitable pan with the liquid to cover. And over here we have some points, for example, for small fish and portion in simmering liquid, to shellfish in boiling water, and large fish in cold liquid. Cook fish at low below the simmering, which is 160 to 180. The lobster, crab, and shrimp may be cooked at a gentle simmering, a little bit more higher. If the fish is to be served hot, remove from the liquid and serve immediately. If the fish is going to be served cold, stop the cooking by adding ice to the liquid and cool the fish in the Court-bouillon to retain moisture. So if you are going to be cooking, for example, this for a buffet, you are going to be adding ice to the liquid, and this is what is known as a thermal crash because it is hot, and then you put a cold thing going to be making a crash, which is known as the thermal crash. So this is the procedure for poaching fish in Court-bouillon. The shallow poaching, which is the last part of this topic. The procedure of shallow poaching fish is based on one of the greatest dish of classical cuisine. This is one of the greatest dishes. Sole or other white fish poached in fumet and white wine. So this is what they're doing, the fumet and white wine. And of course, as I mentioned to you, you can make a combination of that. If well prepared, it can be one of the most delicacy dish on a menu. So if you know how to do it, you can have one of the best dish over here. And over here you say, and the note I put over here, you will find more information on page 6 and 7 of your handout. So this is just a little briefing over here. You are going to find more information of this in your handout. Page 6 and 7, you're going to find the procedure and the guidelines for doing the shallow poach. It is a little extent, so just decided just for you if you can read it. And of course, you can make your own research as well for shallow poaching. Alright, so the next one, glazing. Poached fish is sometimes glazed before serving. This is done as follow. So there are some techniques over here for glazing your fish. Cooking to the particular recipe, combine the fish sauce with egg yolk, hollandaise sauce, and or lightly whipped cream. Alternatively, combine the reduction of the cooking liquid with Monroe sauce. So that is a bechamel sauce. I just put over there. I know that it is just a bechamel sauce with shredded cheese. And the shredded cheese can be mozzarella, can be cheddar, can be manchego, can be parmesan. That's your favorite cheese when it melts instead of fish velour. So this is what glazing is. And coat the fish with the sauce and run the plate or platter under the salamandra or broiler for a few seconds until the sauce is golden brown. So if you put that sauce in the fish, you're going to put that fish in the salamandra or the broiler for a couple of seconds just to make that sauce to get brown. I put a note over here for you that it is a good idea to test a little sauce under the salamandra before cooking the fish to make sure that it's going to brown. So you're going to get a little bit of the sauce in a plate and just put it there to see if the sauce is going to get brown, and also very important to verify that the flavor is good, because if you don't taste it and then you put the fish there and then you cook your fish with that and then you put the salamandra, you are going and it doesn't get brown and the flavor is totally bad, you are going to be spoiling the whole fish. So this is what you do when it comes for glazing fish. So you can do this as a bechamel sauce. And remember that bechamel sauce is also one of the French mother sauces as well. Okay, so steaming and mixing cooking techniques. So what that means that in most recipes share two characteristics, the one we cover over here. The item cooks in its own juice and usually a small amount of liquid is added. We just talk about that with the fumet, right? And the wine. And second, the item is served with its flavored cooking liquid, as we were saying in the simmering part. No simmering to the braising part. Sorry, my bad, my bad. So, so in some cases, enough liquid is added to barely cover, and the item simmers. In other cases, a little liquid is added, sorry, and the item cooks in the steam trap by the pot lid. So we're going to be seeing that in a while. The French term "court-bouillon" is used for this kind of procedure, in which the item cooks slowly in very little liquid. The word is usually translated as stew. So this word, this French term, is translated to English as stew, but this may be misleading, so it can cause some confusion. More precisely means to cook or steam in its own juice or to its own sweat. So this is what steaming and mixed cooking technique means. So there are three variations of this one. The first one, the product is cooked for a few minutes in a fat over low heat, along with a mirepoix or onion to begin extracting juice. A little liquid is added, then the pot is covered and the item is cooked. The second variation is that the product is sautéed over high heat, then other ingredients and liquid are added to the item, and the item is cooked covered over low heat. That is what is known as simmering, right? And the third variation, the product is simply placed in a pot with liquid and flavor ingredient. The pot is covered and the item is steamed or simmered. So this third variation is important because they have a next cooking technique based on this third variation over here. And this we're going to be covering right now. So this is the one, the papillote. The papillote is the one of the third variation I just mentioned to you. So what is papillote? Cooking in papillote. An unusual variation of the an unusual version of the third variation above is called cooking in papillote or in paper, as you can see it over here. You can see it over here. And I have done this one, and believe me, this is very nice, and the meat is always tender. You see this one over here, right? They call it barbecue. When you here in Belize, we do that. They get the fish, they put it in the foil, they put butter and herbs and salt, black pepper, and many things, and then they wrap it in foil, and then they just put it in the grill, and they call this barbecue. But the correct term for this one is cooking in papillote. This is the correct term, not barbecue. The procedure, the cooking technique is barbecue, but the correct cooking term is papillote, just like this one. So the fish item plus flavor ingredient and sauce is tightly closed in a piece of parchment paper so steam cannot escape. Then the paper package is heated. The item steams in own moisture. So all the juices, flavor, and aroma are held inside the paper, which is not opened until it is placed before the customers. Sometimes a starchy thickened sauce is used in the cooking fish and papillote. So sometimes they just use that thickened sauce just to thickened starch, sorry, just to make the sauce a little bit thicker, so it don't get too liquidy and runny. In this case, the fish is usually pre-cooked or meaning poached, so it will not exude juices and juices that will dilute and spoil the sauce. The problem, like always, like everything, the problem with this method is that the fish is often overcooked by the time it reaches to the customers. So that is the problem over here with these cooking techniques, sorry, that the fish is sometimes overcooked when it reaches the customers. But believe me, this one is one of my favorite way of cooking fish. I did one, well, I used to do, I am to do one, I cook one, which is I call the Mayan fish. The same procedure, the same technique, the cooking in papillote, get foil, but I like to put it in plantain leaf or the obel leaf. Place the obel leaf or the plantain leaf and put the foil, the obel leaf, put the a bed of vegetables. I use The basic one, onion, bell pepper, tomatoes, and I just put it there, put a little bit of butter, put my fish, put some butter to the fish, and then I pour a next layer of vegetables, the same vegetables, wrap it, and I put it, can be in a grill or in the oven. That is the same procedure, and the fish is very tender, very, very, very tender. The flavor and everything is so good. So I highly recommend one of these days to try it. But when it comes to the cooking industry, restaurants, the problem with this is that whenever it reaches to the customer, is overcooked already. But if you do it for your home basis, I think there is no problem with this. You can see it over here, not of them. So this is what they call the papillote. So whenever you see they say barbecue, and you see they wrap the fish in foil and put all the ingredients they usually put, the correct term is cooking fish in papillote. The cooking technique is barbecue, but the correct term is papillote. That is what we call in the culinary terms misleading terms. The stove oven steaming. The simplest method of steaming is to place the item on a rack above simmering liquid. The item when I talk about the item, I refer to the fish, right? You can see it over here. Cover the pan and steam until done. Because it does not come in contact with the seasoned liquid or fat during cooking, steamed food is usually delicate in flavor, even more so than submerging poached seafood. So, because this doesn't come in contact with the water, the flavor of the fish is sometimes it's not enhanced. So, there are many techniques how to enhance this. So, for this reason, this method is usually used when the cook wants to emphasize a pure, natural taste of the best quality seafood. So this is rarely done. I have to be honest to you. I have never do this. I have already do poach and simmer fish, but personally, I have never cooked fish to this. So this is usually done, as I say over here, when the chef or the cook just want to enhance the natural flavor of the fish. But also it is done for people who have maybe like a sickness who are intolerant, maybe they have high cholesterol and they prefer to they want to prevent any type of fat, they do it like that. Or maybe they have gastritis or any other illness that can, as they eat it, can burn their stomach, they can do it like this. But if you just do it for your personal flavor, there are many things you can do. For example, over here you see they cook over here, have the boiling water on the bottom and have some vegetables in the top. So whenever the steam start to come out, of course you're going to be putting a lid to this, right? You're going to be covering this with a lid. The steam is going to start to go up and it's going to start to cook all these vegetables over here. And these vegetables are going to start to strip from juices and going to be seasoning the fish. But there are other techniques we are going to be seeing right now. I'm going to be discussing that right now. Alright, so there are three methods available to season and flavor the steaming or the steam for seafood. Number one, you can apply salt and other seasoning ingredient directly to the item. And remember, when I say item, I am referring to the fish, as you see in the picture below, right? So point number two, you can add aromatic herbs and other ingredients to the water so that the steam rising from the liquid carries a little of that aroma to the fish. So you can put, for example, garlic, onions, cinnamon, anise, or whatever you want to put to the water. So whenever it starts to boil, that same steam is going to take some aroma to the fish. Point number three, serve the seafood with appropriate sauce. You're going to be using the appropriate sauce again. Remember, you need to select the appropriate sauce whenever you're going to be doing this. Accompaniments such as simple as melted butter and lemon wedges are classical accompaniment for steamed seafood. So this is very simple and very easy to do. So over here, as I mentioned to you, if you're going to do this, you put your favorite flavor to your fish or to your boiling water for for the fish to absorb the flavor and the aromas from the steam. So there are the three methods available for seasoning and flavoring the steamed seafood. The compartment steaming. Several precautions should be observed if you cook fish and shellfish in a compartment steamer. One, watch the cooking time carefully. That is very important. Fish cook quickly, especially in the high heat of a steamer, and it's easily to get overcooked. So you need to be careful with that. Watch your cooking time. Avoid pressure steaming fish and shellfish if possible. So if you're going to do that, try to avoid the pressure steaming, or meaning that you're going to put fish or shellfish in a pressure pot to steam. The high temperature toughen the fish protein very quickly. So it's very high temperature going to be toughening the fish protein very quickly. Lobster tail and similar items can become rubbery. For example, if you're going to be doing, let's say, you want to do a kebab. Let's say you want to do kebab or any other thing comes with fish. With lobster or with shrimp, and you say, you know what, I'm going to boil my shrimp first and then I'm going to cook. No, that's going to turn the shrimp going to shrink because it's already boiled or steamed, and whenever you cook it's going to continue to shrink, and at the end the shrimp is going to be tasting and the texture is going to be rubbery. So whenever you're going to be doing that, it is important for you to cook the shrimp. If you're going to be doing shrimp kebab, to do it raw. You never pre-cook shrimp if you're going to be cooking. For example, if you're going to be doing, let's say, curry shrimp, you are not going to be boiling your shrimp first, then adding to the curry. The same liquid of your curry sauce is going to be cooking your shrimp. And the same thing with lobster. You never pre-cook lobster and then you put it inside, unless you are going to be doing a lobster bisque, which is far more different. This is the next topic. All right, so this is the compartment steaming. Procedure for steaming seafood. Of course, there are procedures as well. Collect all equipment and food supply. Select a pan large enough to hold the seafood on a rack, and that will hold the seafood above the simmering liquid. So as you see the pot in the picture before, right? There was a fish on the top. Prepare the fish or seafood items for cooking, trim, and portion as necessary, and season as desirable. Season as desired. Remember, I told you I just give you the technique, and you add your favorite season to that. Pour water or other cooking liquid in the pan. Of course, there should be enough to last the entire cooking period without going dry. So you need to make sure you put enough cooking liquid to that, because you don't want to be cooking that, then you get dry. You have to take out your fish and then you're going to put more water, wait the water or the cooking liquid to boil, and then put back your fish. Remember that fish tends to get cool, and then you're going to be spoiling your cooking procedure. And place the food. All right, make I just continue here. Right, but do not add too much that it comes in contact with the seafood. So again, you have to put enough, but you don't have to put too much that when the water starts to boil, it comes in contact with the seafood. Um, Add aromatic and season to the desire. Bring to boil. So you can add your aromatic flavor and season as you desire to the water, and then you're going to bring to boil. Place the food on the rack and set above the liquid. Cover the pan and steam until it is done. Remove the seafood from the rack. Serve with desired sauce and or accompaniments. So that's up to you which one you want to use, which sauce and which accompaniment you want to serve your food with. Seafood that are served raw, these are very, very important, and this is our last topic. So raw oysters and clams have long been enjoyed in restaurants as well as in homes. I love raw oysters. Put salt, some hot sauce, lime, and in Mexico they put what they call salsa valentina and what we call over here soy sauce. They call it there salsa inglesa. They are prepared many ways. Smoked salmon has always been a popular raw seafood item, although many people don't think that it is raw fish because it has been processed. So smoked salmon, I use it one time to make a dip. It's good, but I'm not really big fan of fish. More recently, with the popularity of Japanese sushi and sashimi, very, very important. One of the most famous foods raw that is served raw is the sashimi and the sushi. They're Japanese, originally from Japanese. Many more people enjoy eating items made with raw fish, and chefs are experimenting with new ways to serve raw seafood items. Because, and this part is important, because of the danger of contamination from polluted fishing water, many health officers advise against serving raw seafood. Nevertheless, this item remain popular. So, if you're going to eat raw food, raw fish, make sure that you are getting from a supplier that have a very good reputation, and you know that he's getting his fish or seafood from clean water and not from polluted water. Um, all right, so over here I mentioned two of the most known worldwide known raw seafood, which is the sushi and the sashimi. But there are others that are served raw, and we're going to be seeing that right now. All right, if you choose to serve raw seafood, observe the following five guidelines, and this is important because this is in your test as well. Use only freshest fish. Don't use old fish. Use only fresh fish. Buy the fish from reliable providers or suppliers. And this is important, guys. This part is important. Use only saltwater seafood from clean water. Do not use freshwater fish, which is more likely than saltwater fish to contain parasite. To destroy possible parasite in salted water fish, freeze it and then defrost it before use. Okay, so for example, if one day you say, you know what, I want to eat sushi, I got rice vinegar, I got the algae, the one they use for the sushi. Yeah, or not the algae, but this is known as the seaweed sheet, which is known as the nori. I got that, and you say I got soy sauce, and I got sesame seed or chia seed, I got sriracha sauce, I got wasabi, I got everything home, but I don't have the fish. And then you say, you know what? I think I'm going to the river to get some tilapia or some how they call it la vaca. I think they call it in Spanish vaca or those sweet water. Or you have a friend who have sell tilapia from the farm. You can and you say you want to go there. You buy your tilapia or anything, and then you do your seafood from tilapia. It is more probably for you to get sick if you do that, because as I mentioned over here, um, freshwater fish tend to have a lot of parasites. Saltwater fish as well contain parasites, but due to the saltiness in the water, they tend to have a little less than freshwater parasite. And to destroy those parasites, of course, you just need, I'm talking about the saltwater fish. If you frozen the fish, and then you defrost it, and before using it, don't ever do sushi or any raw plate, sashimi, sushi, or ceviche, fish ceviche with freshwater fish, because believe me, you're going to get sick if you do that. You're going to be contracting some fish parasite, and they are very harmful, believe me. Observe, point number first, say observe the sanitation procedures of their supplier. And five, keep the fish cold. Handle it as little as possible. So try, if you're going to be working with raw fish, try to handle it as little as possible, meaning don't be playing it with your naked hands. You try to use glove and rubber glove or latex glove to handle those ones, because they can get, because they are raw, they tend to get contaminated very fast. So that is the five guidelines you need to observe whenever you're going to be working with raw seafood. And that goes for everything. Go for crab, lobster, shrimp, fish, everything that is raw from that come from seawater. All right, so examples of raw fish dishes. For example, we have the first one, the fish tartare, which is a mixture of chopped fish, of raw fish mixed with various condiments and seasoning. Then we have the fish carpaccio, which is an Italian word for a dish of a thin slice of raw beef served the same way. So this is the carpaccio is an Italian dish, and is made from beef, from what is known the tenderloin, the beef tenderloin. So it is they cut it, they portion it, they put it to get a little bit frozen. When it get texture ready, they slice it paper thin, and then they put lime, olive oil, capers, salt, black pepper, and Parmesan cheese, and they eat it raw. So they have the beef one, and they got the fish version, as you can see over here. The fish carpaccio is a dish consisting of very thin slice from meaty fish such as tuna, served with various garnish and usually with a sauce such as a vinaigrette. Um, I work in some restaurant where they used to serve this, and they used to do it with snapper, with grouper. I think I see once they do it with lionfish, and they put lime. We never use any vinegar, but we used to put lime, and it's the same procedure as well. We put lime, olive oil, salt, black pepper, capers. Well, I don't remember if we put cheese. Honestly, I can't really remember. This one, everybody know what is a ceviche, right? Ceviche is made from fish, shrimp, conchs, and you see conch is raw, right? Conch is raw. So ceviche is a Latin American dish which is made with raw seafood. Um, in some cases, I see people, for example, I do it. I used to do that. I like to do that. When I do ceviche, what I do, I clean all my shrimp. If I do it from shrimp, I clean my shrimp, I devein them and everything, take out the vine and everything from them. I put water to boil. I not put the shrimp inside the boiling water. I put the shrimp in a container, and then I pour the boiling water to the shrimp for maybe 10-15 seconds the most. I just when I put the boiling water with a spoon, I just mix them like if I am doing a soup for 10, as I mentioned to you, 10-15 seconds. Then pour the hot water and put cold water with ice. I just do that just to help the fish to maintain texture. What other people do, they do the shrimp, they cut them in pieces and they add lime, so that the lime is over here, as you see. It is common to say that the acid cook the fish. However, because, well, I put fish over here, but actually it should be the seafood. However, because the food is not subject to heat, it is important to still think that the item is raw for sanitation reasons. So a lot of people say they are going to cook the shrimp or the fish with lime, but because the seafood is not exposed to heat, doesn't using the term cook is not highly correct, and they should say that in restaurants for sanitation reason. So ceviche is a Latin American. This is rama. This is a raw food marinated with an acid mixture. They got fish, for example, fish. Some people what they do, they have boiled the shrimp. I mean the fish. They cut it first, half boil it, and then mix it. And all what they do, they put just the lime juice, soak it there for a couple of minutes, and then they do the ceviche with that. But famous um, ceviche is a very famous dish worldwide. Everybody likes ceviche. I personally love ceviche. And the last one, the sushi. And the sushi is a seasoned Japanese dish which is made with rice and with short grain rice, garnished with one or more seafood. And it contains raw fish, sometimes contains salmon, as I tell you here in Belize, salmon, tuna. And here in Belize, they do it with local fish. I think they do it with local fish here in Belize, with grouper, snapper, lionfish. And it contains wasabi, the seaweed, which is known as the nori, the sesame oil, the wasabi. The rice is seasoned with rice vinegar. They got a lot of variation of sushi. And they have the one I mentioned before, which is known as the sashimi. The sashimi is also almost like the fish carpaccio. This is just the Chinese version, Japanese version, sorry, the Japanese version. So this is the example of the raw fish dishes. And class, thank you very much for for paying attention. This is the end of our lesson number 17. So class, if you have any question, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can send me a message, you can send me a text, you can call me, or send me a message through Teams. So you can use this video, you can go back and front. Of course, all this information is your handout too. If you don't want to sit 2 hours and up to now have 2 hours and almost 7 minutes to see the video, you can just read from your handout, study, make your own research, and then the answers for your test is going to be in your handout as well. And as well, you can find the answers in this video. Okay, class, thank you very much and have a wonderful day.